Usually, before a war begins, something happens that could be used to make the conflict feel justified, and the government builds a story to make it seem the proper response is to rally around the politicians. In those moments, the courageous position is to oppose the war, even though you know you will be in the minority. But the situation we're in right now is different. There was no attempt at a convincing rationale, and most people already seem skeptical of the war. So opposing it is still correct, but it is no longer the difficult position. That means something important about where courage has to move next. If everyone already agrees with your prescription, in this case peace and defiance against the state's war drum narrative, the real task is to push the conversation deeper and instead point to what people are still unwilling to confront, despite already agreeing with the right surface level conclusion. What is that deeper point? Well, listen to the way people justify opposing the war. They say things like, "This is not my war," "The government is not representing me," or "They do not have the right to drag us into this." Statements like that assume something very specific, whether people realize it or not. They assume that the individual has the authority to judge the legitimacy of the state. They are implying the individual is morally prior to the collective. It has to be anyways, because every group is merely a set of individuals. Most people are not consciously arguing for that principle, but their position depends on it. And even if one believes society as a whole has some moral standing, that still does not mean the state is identical with society. The state is a particular institution that claims authority over society, and the two should not be confused. If the collective truly came before the individual, then the state deciding to wage war would settle the matter. The citizen's role would simply be obedience. The moment someone says the war is illegitimate, they have already rejected that premise. They are demonstrating the primacy of the individual, even if they have not articulated it. But then the reasoning stops halfway. People reject the war while still accepting the institution that produces it. This is why criticism has to go further. If you only oppose the war itself, you're opposing a symptom that will appear again and again. The deeper issue is the institution that claims the authority to commit people to war in the first place. Just like when people talk about violence surrounding the drug trade in Mexico, they often focus on the criminals while ignoring prohibition. Yet prohibition is the policy that created the black market conditions that made that violence inevitable. In both cases, the real issue is a lack of principle. And now people, including some libertarians, think the way forward is to punish the administration or party. Are you people literally incapable of learning? You still think it's possible to drain the swamp, or that there is any such thing as a different kind of government? The way people think of this administration is the way people ought to think of any potential administration. The way people think about this war is the way they ought to think about every war. In this moment, they see the scam clearly, the special interests, the hollow propaganda, the erosion of liberty, and it's obvious that the government is asking them to go along with plans that do not serve them. You know, this is the perspective the rest of us had about all the wars they did support, and the social programs and the regulatory regimes they believed in. None of what the state forces on people is justified, and all of it was harmful. The only difference is whether the propaganda is working on them. So the question remains, will they be able to question the narrative when the story is more convincing, when the pressure is stronger, and when they are once again told this time it is necessary? It will always be a toss-up until they can recognize the principle peace relies on. Once you acknowledge that the individual is morally prior to the state, the conversation about war changes. At that point, you're no longer asking whether a particular war is justified. You're asking whether any institution should have the authority to force individuals into war at all.